If you're in your 60s, 70s, 80s, or even your 90s, and your legs don't feel as strong as they once did, you may have been told that this is simply what happens with age. But that's not the whole story. Many older adults are eating what looks like a perfectly healthy diet. Toast and fruit for breakfast, a light sandwich for lunch, maybe vegetables with dinner, and still wonder why getting out of a chair feels harder. Stairs seem steeper, or a trip through the grocery store leaves their legs surprisingly tired. Here's what most people miss. Your muscles don't just need food, they need the right nutritional signals. And as you get older, those signals may need to become stronger and more consistent. That means someone can eat enough calories every day and still fall short of what aging muscles need to maintain strength. And no, I'm not talking about expensive protein powders, bodybuilding supplements, or eating enormous steaks at every meal. In this video, I'm going to show you 5 everyday foods that can help provide the protein and supporting nutrients your muscles need as you age. More importantly, you'll learn why they matter, how to fit them into ordinary meals, and the common mistake that can make an otherwise healthy diet less effective for maintaining muscle. And stay with me because the food at number 1 isn't exotic or expensive. In fact, its biggest advantage may be something most people completely overlook. Before we continue, tell me in the comments, how old are you? And what everyday movement has become more difficult lately? Getting out of a chair, climbing stairs, walking longer distances, or something else? Because before we talk about what to put on your plate, there's one important change happening inside aging muscle that explains why the same breakfast that seemed perfectly adequate at 40 may not work quite the same way at 70. And once you understand it, the rest of this list will make much more sense. So, why can a breakfast that seemed perfectly fine at 40 become less helpful for maintaining muscle at 70 or 80? Part of the answer involves something researchers call anabolic resistance. That sounds complicated, but the idea is surprisingly simple. Think of your muscles like a doorbell. When you're younger, a relatively small nutritional signal may be enough to get a strong response. As you get older, that same signal may not produce quite the same response. The doorbell still works, it may simply need a firmer press. This is one reason maintaining muscle later in life isn't only about eating enough food. Protein quality, the amount you get at meals, your overall nutrition, and regular muscle activity all become increasingly important. And here's the encouraging part. Aging muscle is not simply switched off. Older muscles can still respond to protein and resistance type activity. That's why the goal isn't to eat enormous amounts of protein or suddenly train like a bodybuilder. It's to give your muscles useful nutritional building blocks and a reason to use them consistently. Imagine 2 breakfasts. One is coffee, toast, and jam. The other contains a meaningful source of protein alongside other nutritious foods. Both may satisfy hunger, but they don't send exactly the same message to your muscles. That's the aha moment. A meal can provide plenty of calories without necessarily providing much of the protein your aging muscles need. And this is where our list becomes practical, because the first food isn't a supplement. It doesn't require cooking a complicated meal, and it can fit naturally into breakfast or a simple afternoon snack. For older adults who don't always have a big appetite, that convenience can matter more than you might think. Let's start with food number 5. Food number 5 is Greek yogurt. And what makes it useful for older adults isn't that yogurt is some miracle food. It's that Greek yogurt solves a very practical problem. Getting a meaningful amount of high-quality protein into a meal without having to eat a large amount of food. Think about a typical light breakfast. Maybe it's a piece of toast, some fruit, and coffee. It looks reasonable. It may provide energy and important nutrients, but depending on what else is included, it can also be relatively light on protein. Now imagine adding a serving of plain Greek yogurt. Suddenly that breakfast has a more substantial source of complete protein, including essential amino acids your body uses to maintain and repair muscle tissue. And here's something that becomes especially important with age. Some older adults simply don't feel as hungry as they used to. Preparing a large breakfast or eating a big portion of meat may not sound appealing first thing in the morning. Greek yogurt can be easier. It's soft, requires almost no preparation, and can work at breakfast or as a snack later in the day. You can pair it with berries, oats, chopped nuts, or other foods that fit your nutritional needs. But don't assume every yogurt in the grocery aisle does the same job. This is where many people get caught. Some flavored yogurts can contain considerably more added sugar while providing less protein than you might expect. So turn the container around and check the nutrition label. Compare the protein and added sugar rather than relying on words like healthy printed on the front. That small habit can completely change how you shop. And remember, Greek yogurt isn't going to make weak legs strong by itself. It works best as part of an overall eating pattern that provides adequate nutrition combined with regular movement and appropriate strength-building activity. But now we come to an interesting question. If protein matters, is getting more protein the only thing we should think about? Not quite, because the next food introduces another piece of the puzzle that many older adults overlook. Not simply how much protein you eat, but when that protein becomes available to your muscles. And that brings us to food number 4. Food number 4 is cottage cheese. But instead of asking what makes this food healthy, I want you to consider a different question. What happens to your muscles during all those hours when you're asleep? Your body doesn't simply shut down at bedtime. Throughout the night, tissues continue their normal maintenance and repair processes, and amino acids from dietary protein are part of that ongoing work. This is where cottage cheese becomes interesting. Cottage cheese is rich in casein, a high-quality dairy protein that is digested more slowly than some other proteins. Instead of delivering amino acids all at once, it can provide them over a longer period as digestion continues. And that reveals an important lesson about maintaining muscle after 60. It's not only about how much protein you eat across the entire day. How you distribute protein among your meals can matter too. Consider someone who has toast for breakfast, soup for lunch, and then eats nearly all of their protein at dinner. On paper, their daily intake might not look terrible, but their muscles spent much of the day receiving relatively little protein. A more practical approach may be to include meaningful protein sources at several meals, rather than relying on one enormous serving at night. Cottage cheese makes that relatively easy. It can work with fruit, whole grain toast, tomatoes, or simply as a small snack depending on your preferences and nutritional needs. But here's a detail worth checking before putting it in your cart. Cottage cheese can vary considerably in sodium from one product to another. If you've been advised to limit sodium because of high blood pressure, kidney disease, heart problems, or another medical condition, compare labels and follow the guidance of your healthcare professional. And no, you don't need to start eating cottage cheese before bed every night. The bigger lesson is protein distribution. Give your muscles regular access to the building blocks they need, instead of expecting one large dinner to do all the work. But there's another mistake hiding here. If we focus only on protein, we can miss several other nutritional pieces that help support energy, movement, and healthy aging. And food number 3 changes the conversation completely because this time we're going beyond protein. Food number 3 is beans and lentils. And this is where we need to correct one of the biggest misunderstandings about eating for stronger legs. Protein matters, but your muscles don't live on protein alone. They also need enough overall energy and a healthy dietary pattern to support the countless processes involved in movement and recovery. That's why beans and lentils deserve attention. They provide plant protein, but they also bring something very different to the plate: complex carbohydrates, fiber, and minerals such as magnesium and potassium. Think about someone who becomes so focused on protein that every meal turns into chicken, eggs, or another protein source, while the rest of the diet becomes an afterthought. It sounds disciplined, but healthy aging isn't a contest to see how much protein you can fit onto a plate. Your legs need fuel to move. When you walk around the neighborhood, work in the garden, carry groceries from the car, or perform simple resistance exercises, your muscles need energy to do that work. Beans and lentils can contribute both protein and carbohydrate within the same meal, while their fiber supports an overall heart and gut-friendly eating pattern. And here's the important aha moment. Building a diet that supports your legs isn't about finding one magical muscle nutrient. It's about creating an environment in which your muscles have both the building materials and the energy needed to function. Fortunately, this doesn't require unfamiliar meals. A bowl of lentil soup can fit naturally into lunch. Beans can be added to chili or salads. You might combine them with vegetables, whole grains, or another protein source, depending on your preferences and nutritional needs. But portions and choices should still be individualized. People managing kidney disease, digestive conditions, diabetes, or specific potassium restrictions may need different recommendations from their healthcare professional or dietitian. Now, here's where things become even more interesting. So far, we've talked about getting enough protein, spreading it through the day, and supporting your muscles with a more complete nutritional foundation. But proteins themselves aren't all identical. Inside protein are individual amino acids, and one particular amino acid has attracted considerable attention because of its role in signaling muscle protein synthesis. Understanding that one detail helps explain why certain protein-rich foods can be especially useful as we get older. And that takes us to food number 2. Food number 2 is lean beef. And there's a reason this food brings us to an important piece of the muscle puzzle. It's not just about getting protein. The amino acids inside that protein matter too. One of those amino acids is called leucine. You don't need to remember the scientific name, but here's an easy way to understand why it matters. Imagine you're repairing a brick wall. Protein provides the bricks, but before those bricks can be put to use, the construction crew needs a signal telling them it's time to start working. Leucine acts as part of that signal, helping stimulate the process known as muscle protein synthesis, the process your body uses to build and renew muscle proteins. And this becomes especially relevant as we get older because, as we discussed earlier, aging muscles may not respond as strongly to a small nutritional signal. Lean beef provides complete protein containing all 9 essential amino acids, including leucine. It can also provide vitamin B12, iron, and zinc, nutrients involved in normal energy metabolism, oxygen transport, and healthy body function. But here's where many people make the wrong assumption. If protein is helpful, they think more must always be better. So breakfast contains almost none, lunch contains very little. Then dinner arrives and suddenly there's an enormous portion of meat on the plate. That's not necessarily the most practical strategy. Instead of trying to catch up at dinner, think about building meals across the day that contain useful sources of protein. And you don't need a giant steak to do that. A moderate portion of lean beef can be paired with vegetables, beans, potatoes, or whole grains as part of a balanced meal. And if you don't eat red meat, that's perfectly fine. Other high-quality protein foods can provide essential amino acids as well. Individual needs also vary. If you've been advised to modify your intake because of kidney disease, cardiovascular disease, or another health condition, follow the recommendations of your physician or registered dietitian rather than making major dietary changes based on a video. Now we've covered protein amount, timing, overall diet quality, and even the amino acid signal behind muscle maintenance. So what could possibly deserve the number 1 position? Interestingly, it's not because the final food contains some secret muscle-building compound. Its real advantage is much more practical. It's familiar, requires almost no preparation, and can deliver several nutrients older adults may want to pay attention to in one simple serving. And that combination is exactly why food number 1 may be the easiest of all to make part of your everyday routine. And food number 1 is something so ordinary that many people would never expect to see it at the top of this list. Milk. Particularly milk fortified with vitamin D. Now, milk isn't number 1 because it's a miracle drink, and drinking a glass every day won't suddenly give you the legs you had at 30. Its advantage is much more practical for many older adults. One of the biggest challenges isn't knowing which nutrients matter. It's getting enough of them consistently, especially when appetite becomes smaller. Cooking feels like more work, or large meals simply aren't appealing anymore. A glass of milk requires no cooking and provides high-quality, complete protein along with calcium. In the United States and some other countries, many types of milk are also fortified with vitamin D. Although amounts can vary, so checking the label matters. Why pay attention to vitamin D? Because vitamin D contributes to normal muscle function as well as bone health. And when we're talking about staying mobile later in life, we shouldn't separate muscles from bones. Your legs work as a system. Muscles generate force, bones provide structure, nerves coordinate movement, and your diet helps provide the materials that support all 3. That's the bigger aha moment. The best food for healthy aging isn't always the one with the longest list of impressive nutrients. Sometimes it's the food that's nutritious, affordable, easy to prepare, and realistic enough that you'll actually consume it consistently. You might have milk with breakfast. Add it to oatmeal or use it alongside a meal that would otherwise be relatively low in protein. And if regular milk doesn't agree with you, lactose-free dairy milk can offer a similar nutritional profile. Some fortified plant-based beverages may also be useful alternatives, but don't assume they're nutritionally identical. Protein, vitamin D, calcium, and added sugar can differ considerably between products, so compare the labels. Of course, milk isn't appropriate for everyone. Allergies, kidney conditions, digestive issues, medication considerations, or other medical needs may change what's appropriate for you. If that applies to you, speak with your healthcare professional or registered dietitian. But now comes the most important part of this entire list. You could put Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, beans, lean beef, and fortified milk into your kitchen tomorrow and still miss much of the bigger opportunity because stronger legs aren't supported by one perfect food. They're supported by what you repeatedly do with your nutrition and your muscles. And there are 3 surprisingly common mistakes older adults make that can undermine an otherwise nutritious eating pattern. The second one is especially important because it's the reason food alone can never tell the whole story. Now that you know the 5 foods, there's something even more important than adding all of them to your shopping list. It's avoiding 3 common mistakes. Mistake number 1 is saving almost all of your protein for dinner. Many people start the morning with coffee and toast, eat a light lunch, and then have their largest protein serving at night. Instead, think about spreading useful protein sources across your meals in a way that fits your individual needs. Mistake number 2 is the one I really want you to remember. Eating for stronger muscles, but rarely asking those muscles to work. Nutrition provides the building materials. Movement gives your body a reason to use them. That doesn't mean you need a gym membership or heavy weights. Depending on your health and mobility, activities such as repeated chair stands, resistance band exercises, or other appropriate strength exercises can challenge the muscles in your legs. Even regular walking is valuable for overall health and mobility, although maintaining strength generally requires some form of muscle strengthening activity too. If you have balance problems, significant weakness, pain, or medical limitations, talk with a qualified healthcare professional before beginning a new exercise routine. And mistake number 3, trying to change everything on Monday. New breakfast, new lunch, new exercise program, 5 new foods. By Friday, the entire plan is gone. Instead, choose one realistic improvement. Maybe add Greek yogurt to breakfast. Maybe include a protein source at lunch. Maybe begin an appropriate strength routine 2 or 3 days a week. Because stronger legs aren't supported by one perfect day. They're supported by ordinary choices repeated consistently over time. And that brings us to the real point of this video. Because your goal was never simply to have more muscle on your legs. What that muscle allows you to keep doing. That's what truly matters. At the end of the day, stronger legs aren't really about having bigger muscles. They're about what those muscles allow you to keep doing. Getting out of your favorite chair without struggling. Walking through the grocery store without searching for somewhere to sit. Climbing the stairs with more confidence. Working in the garden, traveling, carrying your own bags, or simply keeping up with the people you love. That's what we're really protecting. Independence. And whether you're 60, 70, 80, or beyond, healthy aging isn't built around one miracle food or one perfect meal. It's built through consistent habits. Give your body adequate nutrition. Include useful sources of protein throughout the day. Stay physically active, and when it's safe for you, include appropriate muscle strengthening activity. Then give those habits time. If you've been experiencing new or worsening leg weakness, repeated falls, unexplained weight loss, severe pain, or a sudden change in your ability to walk, don't assume it's simply aging. Speak with your doctor or another qualified healthcare professional. But for everyday healthy aging, you don't have to change everything tomorrow. Choose one realistic step from today's video and start there. And tell me in the comments which of these foods would be easiest for you to add to your routine. If this video helped you, subscribe and share it with someone who wants to stay strong and independent as they age, because your age matters. But so do the signals you continue giving your body every single day. Take care of yourself. Keep moving.